But to give one guy that power to be able to say the State of the Nation address dressed in camouflage, so people are just not interested in coming to invest in South Africa.
Welcome to the State of the Nation. And joining us today, we have got journalism royalty and the most devoted Orlando Pirates fan that I've ever seen. And it's the one and only Mondli Makanya. Mondli, welcome back.
Greetings.
It's been too long. It's been nearly a year since you were here last. I was just in preparation watching our discussion from then, where we were talking about the government of national unity that had just come into being, and we were discussing where the country was, and the sentiment was much better. Jesus, a year's a long time, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, it was the GNU was very young at that point, and I think that the nation does a lot of hope happening, and I mean, everybody, we anticipated that there would be cataracts along the way, and so on, that there'd be fights, but I don't think any of us would have anticipated the level of disjuncture within the GNU. The fact that the budget can actually
but obviously
rise on the basis of disagreements in the GNU, that was massive.
Yeah, and of course the thing that gave rise to the budget problem was some of the fights that we were actually sort of discussing in that discussion, and it was around some of those acts that the ANC was determined to pass that they knew the DA was going to have a problem with.
Yes.
And it looked like they were going to find each other and maybe, not rush these things through. But then President Ramaphosa decided it was a good idea to rush everything through as it was.
Yeah. And what President Ramaphosa and the ANC decided to do in their minds was that, look, we are a 40% party. We are still the biggest party in the country. The DA needs us more than we need them. And the DA cannot go and disappoint the South African public by pulling out of this. They cannot disappoint their so-called, their investors, people who fund them. And so the DA, we won't blink. The DA will come with us all the way. And then what they did not anticipate was that there is this powerful instrument called voting for the budget.
Yes.
And that the DA actually would be able to use its power when crunch came to crunch. And the DA, I think, strategically was brilliant in using that moment to actually show the ANC that, listen, you may be kind of like the biggest party, but you are not the majority party. And we can actually halt this. And some victories were won by the DA there. And I think some victories were won by the South African public. I think that democracy won very much. To use a certain man's terminology, a certain orange guy from across the Atlantic, I think South African democracy won bigly.
Yeah, it did. But it wasn't, and if one looks at it, it wasn't only the budget issue that has come up. That it was the positive thing. I think one of the biggest issues for the South African public was this growing greater awareness of how the process works, how the budgeting process works, where the money is spent. There's been this almost awakening in South Africa, whereas it used to all just happen in the background because the ANC would just approve everything.
No, exactly. There would be this process that starts almost immediately. The last budget is passed. The Treasury starts working on the next budget, and so on and so on. And there are people sitting somewhere with their computer programs and looking at the numbers and programs and so on. But then what this did was that it made that budgeting process transparent. And, before this, you had organizations on the left in particular, civil society organizations and the COSATUs of this world and so on. And also you also had fiscal conservatives who always put in their 10 cents worth in trying to contribute to saying, we'd like the budget to look like this. And the finance minister and the treasury would always pretend that, we're listening to you and so on. But what this process did was that it did actually put power back into the hands of the general public, because what the government has now been forced to do was to say, look, we will draft the next budget all together. Look, I'm not so sure it's a magnificent thing, because it also gives rise to populism. We have experts in treasury, you have experts in government who are supposed to guide the process. It's their job. It's their every job. But I think once you have, at some point, a COSATU or a SAFTU demanding that we want a greater say in the budget and holding government hostage, it may actually work against us. But I think having the South African public attentive to the process, it allows us to put pressure on our public representatives to actually have that say in how things are done. And also, what you don't want to do as well is that you don't want, at some point, we don't know how big Zuma's party is going to be one day. You don't want them now to actually use the budget process to actually sabotage what the GNU is trying to do, or whoever the government of the future is going to do, because we do have some bad elements in our society. So, that there's a lot that was to be said for the technocratic process.
Yeah.
And it has worked. It's just that now the ANC became an arrogant party that was now abusing even that technocratic process to its own ends.
Yeah, and of course what it did do is it forever gave some kind of yardstick for money wastage. So when the president decides he's going to spend 700 million rand on a national dialogue, you can say, yes, but you needed to raise VAT. Where's the money for this? So there's a greater awareness now, which I think has been positive, which sort of gives rise to the next issue, which, you mentioned the DA and the ANC, with the budget issue being such a major one. One of the other schisms between the two was obviously in the tit for tat as it went along. Cyril kept the Andrew Whitfield firing in his back pocket until he decided it was a good time to play that card, and then fired him for an infraction that looks more like the president's infraction to me than Whitfield's infraction. He asked for permission, the president didn't answer him, and then fired him for going ahead.
Yeah, and of all the things that you can exercise power on, like we know how Cyril Ramaphosa prevaricates and doesn't do anything. And there are so many, and it was pointed out at the time by the DA and other people and other people in society about how there are people in that cabinet who are facing real allegations. And it's not just allegations in the media. It's allegations that were aired in the Zondo Commission, and Zondo actually made findings on, and those people are sitting in cabinet. And then to go and fire somebody, supposedly, let's say Andrew Whitfield hadn't asked for permission. To go and fire somebody on the basis that, hey, your dad didn't go say, sir, I need to go somewhere tomorrow, and sir didn't, maybe sir actually missed my message or whatever. It was such a really silly thing to try and exercise your authority on and say, me, you serve at my pleasure and I will dismiss you on this. And yeah, so as you point out, the DA, in exercising its own authority and sense of power, said, okay, one of the things that they're going to do is that they're going to pull out of this national dialogue, which was really a slap in the face for the president, because this is your biggest coalition partner. This is your biggest partner in the GNU. And if you do not have your biggest partner in the GNU participating in this national dialogue, it almost becomes a non-starter.
Yes.
Particularly because whether you choose to believe so or not, the DA does represent a big constituency which happens to be mainly pale. So if you do not have pale people seeing themselves represented in this national dialogue, what is this national dialogue? Is it all of us talking, or is it just the ANC as a majority party, which whose primary constituency is people of the darker hue. So I think the DA, in exercising that lever, I think it was a very strategic thing, and I think that was the first blow in what was then to become quite a flawed national dialogue process, as we all saw on the day.
Do you think it was the DA's decision that that got the foundations that had backed the idea so heavily to withdraw as well?
No, I think it emboldened other people to say, now we can, this thing, that Ramaphosa cannot own this thing. So here's the big mistake, the big first mistake and the biggest mistake that the president made with this national dialogue. I mean, if we can just go back to the origins of it, I mean, the person who has been speaking very consistently about the national dialogue is Mcebisi Jonas. I mean, almost every year he has been speaking about this dialogue, and he was actually in the process of speaking to various stakeholders across society, trying to say, let's have a national dialogue. But this dialogue would be led by people outside of the political process. And he'd been talking to the likes of Archbishop Makgoba, he'd been talking to the likes of Imtiaz Suleiman and other eminent persons, and now we have an eminent persons group. But like, the government was never supposed to be in the lead. And then former President Thabo Mbeki then also sought to hijack the thing. And when he spoke at the 30th anniversary of South Africa's democracy, and said and called for this dialogue to happen, and then said the foundations. I mean, like, he wanted the foundations to be the people who run, which is still okay. I mean, like, it's non-political, but it is political because the foundations are political. And then a middle ground was being found between what Mcebisi Jonas's position with the position of the foundations, that at least it is not a government-led thing. And then Cyril Ramaphosa goes at his inauguration, goes and announces that I will be convening the national dialogue. That was the death of it.
Yeah.
Because who are you to be convening a national dialogue to where we're going to be talking about the crises that you created?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in many ways it had echoes of if one goes back now 2 years to when there was talk of a multi-party charter, and then John Steenhuisen went over the top by saying, keep an eye on your inbox because we're going to have this moonshot pact, and that in many ways killed off that process.
Yeah, because now it's the DA's process.
The DA's process,
yes.
Yeah. But just on this national dialogue, 2 questions is that I'm keen to hear your view on. Number one is, do you have any idea what the intention is with anybody who does like this idea? What is it that, I mean, as a South African and a patriotic one who lived through other times, I still have got no idea what the intention is, you know what I mean? Because there's no answer or no question there that that isn't in the public domain. So I'm not sure if you say somebody like Mcebisi Jonas was keen on this thing. What is it he didn't know that he thought was going to come out by having 1,000 meetings? And then second to that, is this thing dead in the water right now?
Look, I don't think it's a bad thing at all for us to have a national conversation about, like, taking stock of where we've gotten the 30 years of our democracy. Are we being pulled apart? Are we polarizing? And or are we are we a more unified country than we were in 1994? The whole thing of, like, social cohesion, why is crime so high, and so on? Why are 10-year-olds having babies? I do think there is place for a national conversation about the big issues, to say, okay, where do we want to be in 30 years' time? But I think it can, and so that's what Mcebisi Jonas had in mind. I mean, I
suppose in the absence,
moral center of center of society.
Yeah, and in the absence of any leadership, I suppose
exactly.
we all need to speak, right?
Yeah, it's when now you have a government that says that, I mean, like as President Ramaphosa said in his speech at the National Convention when he opened the dialogue about all these questions that we need to be asking. Why is there so much inequality in South Africa? Why does inequality wear a racial face? Why is a child who grows up in this community less likely to achieve so much? And why are you asking us?
Yeah.
You run this place.
Yeah. Why are you asking us why there's no medicine in the hospital?
Yeah,
when you run the hospital. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So so I think for him, it's a legacy thing. He was he chaired. He was at this core of him and Roof Meyer are credited with being the people who guided the nation towards the 1993 interim constitution and eventually the 1996 final constitution and the great breakthrough. So that's the legacy that he's won, and he was the chair of the Constitutional Assembly as well, and that's the legacy that excuse me. That is the legacy that he would have wanted to carry with him. But then he left politics, went into business, came back from business, kind of like now he saw something like the one thing that he never had was being president of the country. And unfortunately, in the 6 to 7 years that he's been in that office, he is now seen as a failed president. Yeah. In going back and trying to rescue the country from Jacob Zuma, he thought he would be that knight in shining armor who would be credited for having put South Africa back on the right road. And he has failed dismally, and that's how he's remembered. So I think now his own selfish reasoning is that I want to be the person who was the Nelson Mandela. Yeah. Kind of like,
but it's kind of crazy that, and obviously that seems so apt, but why then does he just refuse to lead?
Yes.
You know, it's just quite a weird thing.
You know, you have one job, and the one job is to be just 10 times better than Jacob Zuma. Yeah, which is
just
not very
better.
difficult. Just better than Jacob Zuma, and actually,
he's worse.
And you have so much goodwill from throughout society. You remember, like that crazy year of 2018, the Ramaphosa year. Everybody wanted to help him, from trade unions to big business to and people were united behind him, and all he has to do is just do the very basic things of governance. We were speaking earlier on before we went on air about how the National Director of Public Prosecutions says that the bar is much lower for investigative journalists than it is for prosecutors in terms of building a case. But you know, if you are the president of the country and every day, every week, every month, there is a scandal coming from some municipality somewhere that is run by a mayor from your party, let's say Disobotla, for instance, which is kind of like the poster child of what you've read this, and like, what do you do? Just to make an example of the people who run Disobotla, that this is not the way this country should be run. Here in this town that we live in, the water crisis and the electricity crisis, what have you done to make sure that the people who are from your party who are running this town are running it efficiently? And within national government, when you sit down with your cabinet ministers on a weekly basis, are you wagging the finger and saying that why do these things persist? And so that's all you needed to do. Be unpopular. But you know what? You're going to be popular among the people sitting in this room. Sure. You run this country. You were voted for by the people of this country. You are going to be very popular among them if you actually show yourself to be acting against people who are doing wrong. Not that they differ with you politically, not that they differ with you ideologically or anything. All we ask is that just the right policies, just pitch up for work and implement. The policies are there. We do not need any massive policy reviews. Yeah.
And so just to end this whole national dialogue, which now seems to have faded, is it over? I mean, we're just waiting for an announcement of some description, but does it seem like he's going to forge ahead in one way or another? Because it seems to have stopped after the first.
Now, look, the pride is going to be above everything else. I think they are going to forge ahead, but it's just going to be one of those things that actually amount to naught. I think it. So the money will be spent, however much it is, 450 something million bucks will be spent on the national dialogue, and people will go out to the countryside and ask people what they believe. There will be these talk shops all over the show, but I don't think there's going to be anything concrete at the end of it that we will have to show for what we spend. You know, this is not an original thought, but it has been said throughout this process that between 2010 and 2012, we went through a process of putting together the National Development Plan, the NDP. It's a very comprehensive document. You may agree with it, and some people hate it. Some people say it's neoliberal. Some people say it's too conservative, and some people say it goes too far. But the bottom line is, the government, the National Planning Commission, went through a whole diagnostic process, going out and asking people kind of like, what's wrong here, what's gone wrong here, and then what can be done better. And then the NDP itself, when it was launched and it was adopted by Parliament, by every party, and most of society was very excited about it. The NDP is there, and it had certain goals for South Africa to achieve by 2030.
Yeah. And
even if we achieve 25 to 30% of those, we'd be in a different place from today. And the first one, I mean, like the one that I kind of like felt strongly about, and which I always say, was the chapter about the capable state. Yeah, kind of like fix the state, professionalise the state, depoliticize the state.
This episode of The State of the Nation has been brought to you by Pace Car Rental. We would like to thank Pace Car Rental for sponsoring us, and we want you to support them by hiring your next car through Pace. Go to their website, the address here below, use the code SONA, S-O-N-A, to get a discount. And now back to the show.
Felt strongly about, and which I always say, was the chapter about the capable state. Yeah, kind of like fix the state, professionalize the state, depoliticize the state. And if you just fix the state, so many other pieces were going to begin to fall into place. Yeah. And it's now 2025. We're 5 years away from from the target date, and nothing. Yeah, we're further back than we were in 2012,
which sort of brings us back to more dithering and lack of decision-making. Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi comes out and he makes some startling allegations that there's political complicity at the very high levels with organized crime, and he names names, and our president rushes back from Brazil. It took him a week to get back and an hour and a half late to make his speech. But he gets up and he says he's going to solve this immediately with a commission of inquiry, which he immediately sabotages. What do you think is going to happen with Mkhwanazi?
Yeah, you know, the thing about that as well, you know, a lot of the problems, a lot of the stuff that Mkhwanazi said, not quite directly what he said, but a lot of the issues raised there were issues that were raised in the Zondo Commission. The capture of the police service, the capture of the judicial system, and of the prosecutorial system, and of the criminal justice system, the capture of the criminal justice system. It's there in the Zondo Commission. And it is that capture that allowed bad people to do things during the Zuma years. And what you had to do post-Zondo Commission is to fix those things. And that clearly has not happened. Now, do you need another commission to tell you exactly what the Zondo Commission told you about what's wrong with the police force? Insofar as the specific things are concerned, the specific allegations that Mkhwanazi made, investigate them. I mean, like if as Mkhwanazi says, the Minister of of police is involved in criminality, then get a super sharp task team to actually dig into that and find evidence and prosecute. If they say that the judiciary is, if he says the judiciary is implicated, then Mkhwanazi, please tell us how the judiciary is implicated, which judge and which prosecutor, etc., etc. I don't think we actually had a need to rerun that whole process to tell us that this is what's wrong with our security cluster. We know. Yeah. And the bottom line, and the allegations that Mkhwanazi made, I mean, like, they were damning. I mean, it's the intersect between politics, between the security establishment and organized crime, which I wouldn't be surprised if it's there. I mean, it happens in many countries, more developed countries and underdeveloped countries. But we need to get to the bottom of the specifics so that it does not happen again. I mean, again, let's put those people in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all you needed to do. And you don't need 3 to 6 months for a report that then goes to the president, and then the president orders somebody else. I don't know who is going to order to go and now investigate. I mean, because right now we're sitting with all these like tons and tons of Zondo Commission recommendations.
Yeah.
So now the recommendations from this are going to be on top of those recommendations about prosecuting the bad people.
And 2 months have elapsed since Mkhwanazi made those allegations.
And Mkhwanazi, to give that much power, I mean, look, Mkhwanazi is hugely popular in South Africa, but to give him that power, that you jumped the line of command, yes, maybe he did it for good reasons. Maybe he'd been suppressed by his superiors within the police service. But to give one guy that power to be able to say, to stand in front of cameras and to give a State of the Nation address dressed in camouflage, that kind of, like, for me, that was very eerie.
And very South American, wasn't it?
Very South American, and very much that guy in Burkina Faso, the Traore person, and it made Mkhwanazi an untouchable. And nobody today can be on the wrong side of Mkhwanazi, even if he's busy implementing street executions. So
we got to hope that he's a force for good, because right now he's got the public behind him, and the president's given him that power by not doing anything. So the 2 hearings which are happening side by side, but none in a courtroom, one is the Madlanga Commission, which is the President's Commission. The other is a Parliamentary ad hoc committee. So it seems like the Madlanga Commission's being sabotaged by somebody within, and they managed to name some functionaries that apparently did not or did and didn't do enough or something. But basically, this thing was meant to start the beginning of September. It's not going to start the beginning of September. And it seems like people were willingly inside of the whole process, killing it. Then Parliament decided to act by having an ad hoc committee, which they then put an ANC guy in front of to try and investigate the ANC. That was never going to work either, was it? And now Julius Malema is trying to sabotage that by the looks of things.
No, exactly. You know, the initial discussions, I'm aware, were that this committee would work like SCOPA. And how SCOPA works is, like, traditionally, is that it is always headed by a member of an opposition party.
Yeah.
Because that's where you trust that the ANC, that the majority party is not going to cover up for itself. And since the dawn of democracy, that's how it's worked. I mean, like, at some point it was headed by a guy who was the sole member.
I heard him
here. And so that was the initial discussion about this commission, about the ad hoc committee. And everybody was agreed, including the ANC. But then the ANC was spooked.
Yes.
Because they thought, okay, if we actually have somebody from one of the smaller parties, and it was going to be one of the smaller parties that was going to head it. This person is going to take it seriously. Yeah. And so the ANC did a quick turnaround on that, a turnabout, and put it in the hands of their own people. Now it's also now undermined that commission, that ad hoc process, because it is now getting a lot of distrust from the other parties. And just yesterday, there was a lot of toing and froing between the parties about, are you really serious about this thing? And the ANC majority is being seen to be wanting to protect its people. And that, unfortunately, that will undermine the process where actually that's where it should have been. I mean, Parliament had every responsibility to probe this. I mean, even outside of the president appointing the Madlanga Commission, Parliament would have had to, as the voice of the people, the oversight, the people. And yeah, I mean, like, that's going to be very interesting what kind of games the ANC plays there. Are they going to play the similar games that the ANC of Jacob Zuma played around Nkandla? Are they going to play the same game that this ANC now, post-Zuma ANC, played around the Phala matter, which, as we know, kind of like they made it go away to die. But now this is an ANC of 40%. Are they going to be allowed to manipulate this particular one?
Well, you would imagine they'll get support. If there's crime to be hidden, they'll probably get support from MK, one would imagine. Seriously.
No, but they're among the ones who are actually objecting strongly about the undermining of this process, because they see it as an ability to
win votes.
Yeah, and to undermine, because the people who are supposedly implicated in this are ANC people.
Yeah.
And there is a smaller Nyana event that's going to happen in November next year. Yeah, the local government elections, and everybody is wanting to position themselves.
Now,
angels.
So it looks like both processes are doomed. It's giving a lot of fodder for people that do what you do and people that do what I do. But it's not going to see anybody in orange overalls. But I
wouldn't be as negative as saying doomed. I think the value of it is the airing.
Yeah, there's also another factor to this, in my estimation, and that is, it's one thing to steal money from Transnet. It affects us, but we don't feel it every day. But when you've got politicians that are working with criminals, that are selling drugs to our children, that are murdering our loved ones, that might put just a different complexion on this, because that's there's some issues that you can tackle people on, or that you can sweep under the carpet. You can sweep an arms deal under the carpet, but it's going to be very hard to sweep a drug deal under the carpet.
Yes, I mean, like, and for me, this kind of like there were echoes of a person that I actually admired and I had a good relationship with back in the day. A man called Jackie Silibi. Who was the head of the police force back in the day. And Jackie Silibi's great betrayal was actually being in the pockets of drug dealers. I mean, and the drug dealer is probably the worst form of criminal. You can't grade criminality, but the destruction that a drug dealer.
And also, if one looks back to the Jackie Salibi era, drugs meant white people taking heroin and cocaine. Now it's black children taking Nyaupe.
Yes.
Right, and stealing stuff from their grandparents. It's a different
and it's
drug world.
Ravaging communities. It's you're absolutely correct. It's drugs. It's not an elite thing anymore. And before this, the working class, the worst drug that the working class would take would be dagga. I mean, like that was the drug of the common man. And now it's destroying generations of young people.
Now, I want to ask you, because we mentioned the Madlanga Commission, and I'm concerned about two areas of great weakness in South Africa. As you get to a more advanced age, you start realizing it would be quite nice to get
I thought you were 27.
I just had a hard life, yeah. But you start thinking of what would be a great retirement job. And if you're an old judge who has to retire, it would be a great thing to chair a commission. You get lots of money, you get to chair the commission, and as long as your finding is in favor of the government, you're going to get to chair the next commission. Do you think that a retired judge can be impartial? Because he knows that if he is impartial and he finds against the ruling party, that's the end of his retired judge being called in to run commissions.
I think South Africa is a little more sophisticated than that. It's the governing party, by the way. It's not the ruling party.
Yeah.
Swaziland is a ruler.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think that the judges that we've had chair commissions have been men and women of integrity. First of all, the judge who chairs the commission is nominated by the Chief Justice. So,
right.
The president appoints the person, but the Chief Justice is the person who says, this is the person that I want in this position. The president, they can haggle.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, the person nominated by the Chief Justice does get the job. And the only time where we have had an instance of a commission that was
questionable
was the Seriti Commission that looked into the arms deal. And that judge has discredited himself forevermore. Yes, he will die earning his pension, but even among his peers, he's I wouldn't say persona non grata, but he enjoys absolutely no respect among serving and retired judges, because it was very obvious that he was working to a certain end, to a certain conclusion, the way he conducted that commission.
Yeah.
And whether it was on instructions or whether it was just him himself feeling I need to protect certain individuals for whatever reasons, or a party. But generally, the judges who have, whether you going to the Americana Commission or whether you're speaking about, the Zondo Commission, etc., our judges are actually very, very solid. I think it's one thing that we have that we can be very proud of. You look at the judiciary in the United States of America, the supposed greatest democracy on earth. That judiciary is just it's partisan. To the point where the media has to say this is a Biden appointed judge, this is a Reagan appointed judge, this was a Bush appointed judge, because their judgments tend to be ideologically skewed, whichever way. Yeah. Whereas our judges here do apply the law.
Okay, which then brings us to another area that I think is starting to raise its head, and this is by the establishment of the government of national unity instead of a coalition. We understand was to try and disguise the fact that it's really a coalition between the ANC and the DA. We got a whole lot of these small parties involved, right? These one-seat parties. And I see there's something that you commented on recently, and I've commented on many times, is this, our Minister of Tourism, Patricia de Lille, the good party, one seat on the way out, gets a ministry. And there seems to be all sorts of stuff going on in that ministry, and she seems to be behaving, as you put it, like an ANC minister that she once condemned.
Yes, Patricia de Lille has been such a massive disappointment, I would say, because all that she seems to be wanting to do now is to retire on a good pension, having served in successive administrations as basically an appointee of an ANC president. And she has definitely been infected by the cadre bug. And obviously investigations will unfold, but the way she has behaved in respect of this in what seems to be her protecting the current CEO, who is as dodgy as anything, has been flagged by the Auditor General, been flagged by Forensic, and been flagged by her board members, that this person should not be sitting in it where she should not be sitting where she's sitting. And but there is one person, and that is the minister, who goes out of her way, is prepared to risk her reputation, prepared to risk the reputations of upstanding members of society who have actually said, look, we're going to come and serve on this board in the interests of South Africa, and to risk the reputations of those people by actually accusing them of nefarious things. The really sad part about this is that study after study, rhetoric after rhetoric, speech after speech, state of the nation after state of the nation, not ours, not the state of the nation,
not this one, but that one,
but that one. Tourism is always pointed out as this low-hanging fruit for our anemic economic growth rate. That they actually, if you focus on this thing, the multiply effect, etc., it's so big, and people like coming here.
Sure.
People like going to the Kruger. People love going to Cape Town, and etc., etc. Maybe less like coming here, but but people like to coming to do business in Johannesburg from elsewhere, and people from the rest of the continent and elsewhere, they love coming to shop here. So tourism is that thing that even if we're not getting our industrial policy right, even if we're not taking advantage of our mining resources, here we can actually do something without actually having to do much. And we are messing it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it shows with some of the other ministries that this has become the backwater, the place that you put the minister that you're just trying to keep sweet with somebody who's not very good, but they are useful ally.
You know what? I've got a job for you. And I'll put you in this thing that I should be taking so seriously. I mean, like the same thing goes for arts and culture. I mean, like that's not a place to play with. I mean, like there is some of the biggest economies, some of the biggest sectors in other economies is the arts and culture sector. I mean, like you don't even need to go to Hollywood. Just up the West Coast here in Nigeria. I mean, like Nigeria's the artistic dividend that Nigeria gets. I mean, like, through Nollywood and terrible art, but but it works.
Yeah. And so I suppose we stuck with her because he's not about to relieve. Well, look, our president doesn't take action anyway, but it's another party. It's another way of saying there's 10 parties in this government of national unity, so we're going to be stuck with.
He needs to keep her in the tent.
So he'll keep her in the tent regardless of the job that she does. You mentioned in there our anemic economic growth or our squandered growth situation. We now seem to have got into a situation where we've almost sort of lost interest in the economy by the looks of things. We're just now stumbling along at a 1% growth. Now and again, we might just have an odd quarter that was better than the last, but there seems to be nobody at the helm of the economic ship.
Yeah. You know, there's some numbers that came out last month, I think. Was it a month or two back? I can't remember now. By some agency, some investment agency, about the dwindling investment, foreign direct investment in South Africa. And it was a paltry figure, like I think it was $680 per South African, I think. Whereas I think countries like at our level, they're talking like in the tens of thousands per individual. So people are just not interested in coming to invest in South Africa. Yes, kind of like we're not yet in the negative, and we're still positive. But the bottom line is it's not productive.
Now, we seem to have sacrifice the potential foreign direct investment at the altar of ideology.
Are you gonna say, are we gonna blame PE now?
Well, that's part of it, but
Yeah.
I'm saying more because there's only a certain. We can see investment patterns; they're very,
Yeah.
very, very transparent, and we're not attracting investment. I mean, before we even get to BE, it's not like we're seeing Chinese investment.
No.
Everybody carries on about China. Well, China aren't opening up anything here. They're selling their stuff here because it's another market. So some South African has to buy those cars and then on-sell. It's not like the government of China is giving them to us or those companies are giving them. No, they're here to make a profit.
And then while we're subsidizing European and American
Yes.
car makers, and
So-
these guys are just dumping the stuff.
Yeah, you know, and I think that the idea is to try and confuse the argument by saying, oh, it's just America being mean. No, the point is South Africa is not a desirable investment destination, even for those that we say are the future, like the Chinese or the Indians. They're not looking at South Africa and saying, you know what, we'll move some of our operations to South Africa. No, they're saying we'll sell some of our products there.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't understand. I mean, I think that what we've got at the moment is this confused situation where we're looking at Donald Trump and the way he does business and saying he's the problem, and not looking at ourselves and saying, hang on a second, nobody's investing here, including these so-called BRICS countries that are meant to invest here.
Yeah. And what we have done, and I think it's borders on the criminal, is that in all these investment roadshows that we've gone on, the president will go to Germany, will go to other European countries and actually sells the country. And there is some people, it's not as great as it should be. There is commitment. He gets commitments for people to come to invest here. And we've been told that one of the reasons is that after the commitment is made, there's just simply no follow-up. The embassy in Germany is very frustrated about that, apparently, because our guys from the presidency side, nobody just follows up. And it speaks to your point about like we are just not interested. This is now just in addition to the fact that we are not an attractive. We are not as attractive an investment destination as many other countries at our level of development. Now, these are people who do want to come, even with our drawbacks, and we are just not taking advantage of that. And you know what? In this environment, even if it's 233 jobs, it matters. The multiplier effect is there. Downstream, something does happen in an environment where you're having all the car-related industries in the Eastern Cape closing down, seeing what's happening in Newcastle and the Vaal. And why are we not seeing this as urgent as we can? I mean, like we have this ministry called Trade and Industry and Competition, which was a massive failure under the previous minister, who was very ideological, as you would correctly point out. And now you have a minister who kind of like when he came in, there seemed to be a lot of energy. But the ideas are still very much stuck way in the past. And the critics of BEE that I will agree with, which I don't agree with this thing that kind of like let's blame transformation in BEE for our laggard growth. We will agree with is like, why is one of your great big ideas this 100 billion rand fund for black industrialists? I mean, you know what that's going to be. It's going to be a treasure trove for certain people. Why in 2025 are we talking about a state bank?
Yes.
Yeah, when we've got all these agencies like in the NEF, the IDC, etc., that are actually supposed to drive the growth of entrepreneurship and industrialization. We are not short of those kinds of institutions in South Africa. We do not need a state bank to be driving that. And on top of that, every single commercial bank has a division looking at that precisely that. Yeah. And their argument is that no, but like they apply certain commercial principles and so on and so on. So what are you going to apply there? I just going to dish this money out.
Just open, put the vault in the front and say, come help yourself. And, in closing, my own comment is that the one thing that gives me hope is that South Africa is not short of entrepreneurial talent. We've got people that want to do things. We've got hustlers. We've got people that would do it. But to me, the most damning thing about our economic policy is that South Africans themselves do not feel confident enough to invest with their own sweat in this economy, because it is impossible to trade in this place. Everybody sees it except for the government. And here we've got to blame the broader government, including the government of national unity, that has not moved the needle on our economic requirements, questions, making this a better place. One of the great attractions of the GNU is meant to be this coming together of different people that could perhaps bring more investment in. It hasn't been allowed to be done. But it's wonderful to have Mondli Makanya with us, and we've gone over a lot of issues. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm sure you've enjoyed this as much as I have. Please subscribe to the channel. Support Pace Car Rental. Go on their site, rent a car, you'll get a discount. Use our code SONA. Mondli, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
To everybody out there, we'll see you again on the State of the Nation. Thank you. Every business needs a world-class video to show to your clients and prospective clients. When the Stream-In team isn't filming the State of the Nation, they are producing those world-class videos for companies just like yours. They have got all of the equipment, drones, microphones, whatever you need, and the technical know-how to film a proper video for your company. Visit their website.